This is the end, my friend. This is a letter to a thing to Kundan Shah. We had a great innings together, and now it's over. But I'm not done yet. I have a mission to accomplish. I have to have a conversation with the people of my country and nail one last lie. There is a new narrative that is rapidly sweeping across my land. It is a story of a distant past where a great civilization existed in peace and harmony until a barbarous band of invaders destroyed it by marauding and pillaging this incredibly unique nation. A superior people ravaged by savages that led to 1,000 years of slavery. It is a narrative of the past that allows its believers so many insidious possibilities for the present. It divides people, us and them, the patriot and the fifth columnist. It allows for hate. It allows for demonization of religion, and if one stretches the argument, it even allows for retribution. It can be converted to payback time with no guilt, no remorse, no shame. This is a classic example of the weaponization of history, and every fascist loves it. However, this narrative is an insult to my intelligence. Besides, it's also a lie. I will now list out the names of some of the kingdoms and empires that existed and disappeared before the coming of these outsiders. The Cholas, the Cheras, the Pandyas, the Chalukyas, Hoysalas, Shungas, Palas, Pratyaharas, Kakatiyas, Satrahans, kingdoms in Kashmir, Gujarat and Sindh, Yadavs, Gonds, Solankis, Kalingas, Nandas, Magadh, Kannauj, Mathura, Kashi, Rashtrakutas, Pandavas, Gauds, the Mauryas, the Guptas and the Kushans. I could go on. Now a simple question needs to be asked. How did one kingdom or empire give way to another? Was it over a cup of tea and biscuits? Or the spilling of blood? So what is the story? There's enough evidence in Hindu, Buddhist and Jain literature and tales to tell you that there were wars, carnage, plundering and desecration. There's a lot of spilling of blood as empires changed and kingdoms collapsed. Once shutters of the story of Ashoka's ascent to power, of Parshuram's revenge against the Kshatriyas, of the carnage of warriors that Pushyamitra or Shashank wreaked, of the mayhem recorded in the Mahabharata. That's what wars are all about, and these are kingdoms changed and empires fall. That is not all. Hindu kings fought against other Hindu kings, Shaivas against Vaishnavas, and also against Buddhist and Jain empires. They even destroyed others' places of worship. The history of the Shunga, Pala, God, and Rashtrakuta empires revealed bloody massacres and desecration. Yes, there was bigotry too. Places of worship were destroyed and people were killed for their beliefs. There's a classic story of a king offering a bounty for the head of every Buddhist slaughtered. Yes, the past was not all that tranquil and peaceful as it made out to be. One should not be surprised by all of this, because that's exactly how empires are created and extended, controlled, and then finally destroyed. The Vari Chanakya revealed so many secrets in his writing on statecraft. Does all of this mean that the Indian civilization before the coming of the Afghans and Turks was not great? No. It simply means that this sophisticated confluence of ideas, cultures, and philosophies also spilt a great deal of blood. I shall now come to the barbarous invaders. Yes, they did invade and they fought against Hindu kingdoms and empires. They did desecrate and destroy temples. They came as iconoclasts and they behaved as such. Were they biased to people of their own faith? Of course they were. Can you imagine this age as being democratic and just? And was it just before they arrived? Once established, however, things began to change as they made alliances with Hindu kings and chieftains, had Hindu administrators, financiers and their scholars, doctors, scribes, musicians, historians, poets and architects, and Sufis began to mingle and to learn from this ancient land. Songs began to be sung together, festivals celebrated together, and would love and poetry be far behind? Yes, as much as the civilization honored war and valor, it celebrated love, literature, and poetry too. Along with these interactions over time, a new strand of color was being slowly added to a large existing canvas. The new entrants fought among themselves also, and dynasties changed from the Tughlaq to the Slav to the Khiljis and to the Lodhis. These sultans also confronted the Mongol hordes and faced the wrath of Timur and the Muslim kings from the north and to the west. So was everything perfect? No. Was there lurking hostility towards these new arrivals? Yes, there were. Yes, were there cases of injustice and bigotry? There must have been. But beyond that, imperial power had the capacity of forming close friendships, alliances, and marriages too. Finally, the children of Babur arrived. This was the term used by these purveyors of false history to describe the Mughal Empire. The question is, who the hell did the Mughals really fight? Yes, Babur did fight a couple of Rajput kings, but his biggest battles were against other Muslim Afghans of the earlier rulers. All through the reign of the Mughals, till the time of Aurangzeb, the greatest enemies were other Muslim kingdoms in Gujarat, Sindh, Punjab, Kandahar, Kabul, Malwa, and Muslim usurpers in Bihar and Bengal. What is important to note is that it's a Muslim, Mughal, and Hindu Rajput alliance that included marriages and children that had created this empire. Another truth, this alliance slaughtered Hindus and Muslims in equal measure, and if one goes by the rules of the game, it is quite ghastly. All wars are. As we move to the south, the biggest obstacle to Mughal dominance were the Deccan Sultans, whose commanders-in-chief were either Abyssinian warriors, Marathas, and Andhras. To these kingdoms, the Mughals were outsiders. And for over more than 300 years, from the 14th to the 17th centuries, a distinct Persian, Andhra, and Maratha culture had taken shape in these lands, and hundreds of Hindus were important administrators, nobles, and commanders. There were many alliances through marriages too. Does anybody know that Shivaji's grandfather, Maharaji Bhosle, was a commander under the Abyssinian Sultan Malik Ambar? Does anyone know that the two were brilliant warriors and perfected the art of guerrilla warfare as they confronted the Mughal armies of Emperor Jahangir? Does anyone know that the same grandfather went to the mausoleum of a Sufi saint named Shah Sharif to pray for male children? And does anyone know that when those heirs were born, they were named Shahji and Sharifji after the same Sufi saint? Yes, the Muslims did fight against the Muslim sultans, but so many of their commanders were Hindus. The Muslims fought against the Muslim Mughals, and so many of the commanders were Hindus too. To add to this confusion, many Hindu kings had Muslim commanders and the soldiers in the army. So who was fighting whom? There was another case. There is a famous case of Maharana Pratap confronting the forces of Emperor Akbar at the Battle of Haldigati. Of his two commanders, one was a Muslim, and his army of 3,000 comprised 1,000 Afghan warriors. Do people know this little detail? On the other hand, was Emperor Akbar leading his army? No, it was led by Man Singh, a Hindu general. As an aside, I would like to add that the numerous wives and concubines were not just a phenomenon of the degenerate Muslims. A great number of Andhra, Rajput, Sikh and Maratha kings and nobles had wives and harems too. In fact, Chhatrapati Shivaji had 6 wives. Does that make him lesser a hero? No. He was a great king and warrior of his time. The question that needs to be asked of these purveyors of false history is, why have they left these little details hidden? What purpose does it serve, and who benefits from it? Let me guess. I believe the 700 years of Islamic influence did 2 basic things. One, it undermined the role of Sanskrit as the power base. But more important than that was the rapid expansion of vernacular languages. Hindi, Braj, Khadi-Boli, Awadhi, Bengali, Gujarati, Dakhani, Urdu, Marathi, Telugu, Kannada. The practitioners of high culture would be aghast at this subaltern intrusion. The second was the rise of the Sufi and Bhakti movements, which at their core critiqued mindless rituals and attacked the pompousness and hypocrisy of clerics and priests. Try and imagine these worthy persons just being ridiculed. After centuries of glorification and impunity, what would their reaction be? Having said this, I must get back to my argument about empires. As far as the growth of the Maratha and Sikh empires is concerned, the biggest battle and conquest occurred after the death of Aurangzeb. And I go on like this. Now, so was Mughal rule perfect? No. Were there cases of intolerance and bigotry? I'm sure there were. As I said earlier, as with all feudal empires, there was anguish and injustice too. The important point to note is that Hindus and Muslims fought together and also against each other. Therefore, the idea of 700 years of history of Muslim on one side and Hindus on the other is an insult to my intelligence. The idea that only Muslims can be violent, cruel, and plunder and kill is an insult to my intelligence. The idea that Hindus are non-violent and peaceful is another piece of garbage. As the saying goes, "Hammam mein sab nange hain." Everyone is naked in the marketplace, in the public baths. Some more points to note. These invaders never left. They lived and died and are buried right here in this land. Generation upon generation of their graves are testament to the simple truth. They created exquisite monuments and palaces, built public buildings and made of gracious cities. They built courts, hospitals, markets, caravans arrived in ports for trade, and enriched the land with music, literature, and tales, food, language, dress code, poetry, architecture, and gardens. They also built an administrative structure across the land that exists still today. And most importantly, they did not stash their wealth abroad, as so many patriots do today. Will all of this convince you right to the false histories? Frankly, I don't know and I don't give a damn. They are born in hate, they lack humor, and most importantly, they have no poetry in their souls. So let them create the narratives of the past, create history to suit their ideological needs because they have the numbers in parliament. But as Kundan Shah would say, if 10 guys say you're drunk, don't lie down, stand up and speak out.